Because I was an orphan and did not have any family, I was never exposed to the concepts of family and love. From the time I was a child until I finished the college, I never had someone by my side in any of the experiences I went through. But a moment came when I just met Jenny. To begin, we got to know one another through a web development webinar, seeing how I had become a web developer with God's assistance. During that webinar, I served as the co-host, in which she took part as a participant. After completing the webinar, I was surprised to see that Jenny had texted me. She asked me to assist her with the new website project that she was working on. I had a really busy schedule, but she insisted a lot, and in the end I gave in and agreed to assist her. During the course of our working session, I believed that both of us had a spark in our hearts. But up till that point, neither of us had explained anything to the other. Following the conclusion of the task, I was terrified that it was possible that we would never see each other again, but she would always leave me a message on my phone, and if I had to guess, I would say that was the beginning of us getting together. We began to spend quality time together, but the issue surfaced when she disclosed one day that she had a boyfriend with whom she was in a relationship, but she wanted to quit it. My expectations were that she would put me at the forefront of her life, thus my disappointment was understandable. Perhaps I belonged to a more traditional era. However, on the same day that she observed the change in my behavior, she disclosed her feelings for me. At the same time, happiness and amazement filled my heart. She expressed a desire for me to meet her family, and that particular day was the one which I went to see them. After talking to everyone, I felt like I was on top of the world, simply because I had the feeling of affection for my family. I was able to learn from her father's past experiences. Even though I didn't tell her, her mother created my favorite meal from the lasagna cuisine. Her elder sister was a really good person. I ended up becoming friends with her spouse. After only one encounter, I was convinced that this was the ideal family for me, and I couldn't believe it when I found out that they might have known about me in advance of our first meeting. I did not feel at all like the first time that I was meeting any of them. We were married in just a few short months. As a wedding present, her parents planned and paid for our honeymoon. We had a good time overall. Our marriage continued to thrive for the first 14 months, but then something happened that rocked me to my core. It wasn't until many months after my wedding that I started a very large project for my firm. Because of this, I had to keep a very strict work schedule and always be on time for my shifts. I was aware that it was a mistake on my part to spend the entirety of the day working in the office rather than devoting any of my time to Jenny. But from the very beginning, she was aware of the scenario of my profession, and as a result, she spent the most of her time either at her parents' house or at her sister's place. The primary problem all sprang from this point. I was completely spent by the time I reached the final day of my project, and Jenny had gone to visit her sister at her residence. I had the idea that I ought to pick her up from there, and then we could have a delicious meal together. I traveled to her sister's residence. I rapped on the door, but nobody answered, despite the fact that I could feel someone inside. I knocked once more, and finally Jenny stepped in, dripping with sweat and panting despite her exposing clothes. I inquired as to what had transpired with her. She stated that she was engaging in physical exercise. I inquired while wearing these garments and without any weights. She mentioned that she was also working out with body weight in addition to doing Zumba dance. I inquired to her once again, "Are you working out while wearing these clothes?" She reported that she was able to relax in this setting. I was now inside the home. She questioned me in an odd manner about what I was doing at this location at this particular moment. Her tone of voice suggested that she may have been frightened. I explained to her that I had completed my task for the day and was on my way to pick you up. I did not observe any sign of joy on her countenance. I inquired about her sister and her brother-in-law, asking where they were. She mentioned that they had dinner at a friend's house. Therefore, she was alone herself at home. Naturally, I had faith in her at that moment. I looked down at the couch and noticed a cell phone, but it wasn't Jenny's phone. I inquired from her whether or not they had left their phone. She had an extremely peculiar perception of the mobile phone. She confirmed that her sister's husband had forgotten his phone in this room and might be in a rush. I responded with, "Okay, then get ready because we're leaving for home." She inquired me precisely at this moment, right this second. I responded with, "Yes, of course." She questioned how she could have possibly left this house and asked how they could possibly return. I responded by stating that this was in fact the case, and then I told them that it was fine because we were going to their friend's house, where I would then hand over the keys before we left for dinner. It seemed as though she was acting in a very peculiar manner. Suddenly, she changed her mind and indicated that she would rather return home the next day. I questioned her regarding the reason. She said that since she had certain matters that needed to be addressed with her sister, I replied that everything was fine and that we will return the next day. I responded by saying that everything was fine and that we would just wait for them to arrive before we left. Once more, she did not feel content. "Okay," she continued, "we should move according to her, and we should ask them if they have a key." And then she instructed me to hurry up and get out of there. I didn't have a problem with this, but it did make me wonder why she initially said she couldn't go home today and then, a few minutes later, said she had to leave. When I was getting ready to leave the house, the sight of garage drew my attention to the area where the car was parked. I asked her if the automobile that belonged to her brother-in-law was present because I was curious as to how the group had gotten to their friend's place. Again, overcome with anxiety, she said that they had to call a cab since the engine in their vehicle had broken down. There was some part of me that was certain that she was being dishonest with me. I had the distinct impression that she was intentionally misleading me. But because I loved her so much, I chose to disregard what my heart was telling me. It was yet another occurrence that occurred which makes me suspect that she is engaging in questionable behavior. Her relatives extended an invitation to join them for a family meal. We were to have supper while I was seated next to Jenny, and her sister and her husband were seated in front of us at the table. During the course of dinner, I became aware that Jenny and her brother-in-law had been staring at each other for a considerable amount of time. I found that weird. Even I had the impression that Jenny was moving her feet or leg. Perhaps she was moving both. When I asked her what had happened, she smiled and told me, "Honey, nothing has happened." After a while, her brother-in-law asked everyone to excuse themselves so that they could use the restroom. After he left, Jenny declared that she would return to kitchen for further pancakes. I found myself engaged in conversation with her father, who was kind and welcoming to me in the role of father figure. It would appear that only these two individuals were absent from the table. After a duration of 4 minutes, I had the idea that I ought to go there if I could find out why she didn't come over here till now. When I arrived at the cottage, she was nowhere to be found. It was a difficult situation. As soon as I entered my bedroom, I was greeted by what sounded like voices having a mysterious conversation. I gave it my best shot, but all I could hear was Jenny's brother-in-law's voice. It seemed as though they were flirting. Suddenly, I opened the door, and when I did, I noticed the two of them standing quite close to one another in the bedroom. Both of them were taken aback when they saw me. I questioned them about why they were in this location. Suddenly, she said she had arrived to retrieve her charger, and the exact same moment, her brother-in-law announced that he was on his way to the restroom. Their statements were so contradictory to one another. But then Jenny came up to me and told me that she was assisting her brother-in-law because her sister wanted to obtain a divorce from her brother-in-law and that he was so distressed about it that he was crying. That is why they convened in this location to talk about the matter. I noticed her face, but there was no sign of dread or alarm before Jenny's statement. However, while Jenny was speaking, The look on his face changed and he began to agree with Jenny, and then requested me for assistance because he thought I could help. It indicates that they are engaging in dramatic play with me. I was so dense that I did not see their closeness and believe them. Jenny's love simply made me blind to their relationship's development. Now I was also part of the plan that they had. I advised that they have a conversation with her father and mother, since they might be able to assist. However, they both declined, citing the fact that they were overly rigorous, and asked me to promise never to disclose this information to anyone else. They assured me that I would not communicate in any way with Jenny's family, including her parents and sister. I had the impression that I was in on their little secret, but it appears that they have found a way to trick me with all of this. Once again, I returned home at an unusually early hour and discovered both of them to be alone. They provided the same explanation once more. I always make it a point to encourage him and offer advice or suggestion on how they make their marital life better. I am ashamed to admit that I assisted them in whatever way possible in their nefarious deed, because whenever I came into them, they always claimed that they were merely talking about something. I can't believe I've done this to myself. When that happened, both of my future father-in-law and my future mother-in-law phoned me to extend my invitation to join them. During the holiday season with my family, we came to an agreement because I did not have a problem with dates. For our family vacation, we decided to go to Greece. It was a beautiful day outside. We all congregated at a hotel that offered a breathtaking panorama. Every room had a breathtakingly gorgeous pool with a view of the ocean. We had a wonderful time during those 2 days. But I got sick on the third day, and I think it was because of the shift in the weather. So I got high fever. I spent it one day in my bedroom. I want to urge Jenny to relax and enjoy her vacation without worrying about anything. The majority of her time was devoted to spending time with her family, so I didn't trouble her, not even in the middle of the night, to find out she was there or not. It was approximately 2:15 in the morning when my eyes got open. I ascended to the balcony and looked out onto the balcony of the hotel room where Jenny's sister and husband were staying. Unfortunately, our rooms were located quite a distance from the pool, making it difficult to identify guests while they were swimming. So that led me to believe that perhaps they were the sister of Jenny and the man she married. I exited the room and walked into the restaurant area, where I found Jenny's sister sitting with her father and mother-in-law, all of whom were listening to music. When I went to see them, they asked me about my health, which came as a very huge surprise to me. When they informed I had no problems. This question triggered me because the music was a bit loud and my father-in-law had asked me about Jenny because it was noisy. I chose not to answer them and instead hurried to the opposite side of the hotel where I could get a better view of what was happening in the pool. I don't understand why from the very first day my heart was trying to tell me that something was seriously wrong. When I looked over by the pool, I witnessed a horrifying image unfolding behind me. I observed Jenny engaging in an inappropriate activity with her sister's husband, who was also present. It completely blew my head. I am unable to put my finger on how I was feeling. I was attempting to persuade myself that what I was saying was not true, but how can I deny the obvious? I stood there and stared at them for the full 5 minutes that I was there. Then, for some reason, I managed to persuade myself and I went and got my mobile phone, where I not only recorded everything, but also took pictures of them. After that, I exited the hallway, went back inside and locked the door behind me. I sneaked out of the hotel in the morning without informing anyone I was going. Even though they called me 100 times, I didn't pick up the phone each time. I made my way back to my house. However, they got back on the 5th day of what was supposed to be a 7-day journey. I sent a message to everyone, asking them to come home and meet me. and I expect everyone to be here at the same time. They were quite concerned and came to my house. I was there in my house. I instructed everyone to take a seat. Within a short period of time, I presented Jenny with a few paperwork and placed all of her luggage in front of her. Her dad called and wanted to know where I was and why I had not noticed anyone I was going before I left. Jenny began to question me about what exactly this was. What is this exactly? What it is exactly that you are attempting to accomplish? Her father inquired after her regarding the contents of those documents. She stated that the documents are for the divorce. They started questioning why I was engaging in this behavior. Then after everyone was said and done, I played those movies and images of Jenny and her brother-in-law that I had taken in Greece. The fact left everyone in utter awe and amazement. In fact, Jenny's sister did a play, and they departed the house. Her father began yelling at their son-in-law and Jenny, demanding to know what the heck had happened. He got into an argument with his son-in-law. I advised them to leave my place and resolve their difficulties at their own residence before I would help them. Jenny begged me to forgive her while sobbing her heart out in front of me, but I told her it was too late. I tossed her belongings outside, away from the house, and I told Jenny to leave my home immediately. Despite the fact that they had left my property, they caused a disturbance on the road, which forced me to contact the authorities. I have no idea what happened to Jenny after that, but whatever it was, I am confident that she deserved it. I could no longer put my faith in anyone. Because I witnessed such a heartless truth, I'm unable to love anyone.